Episode 3, The Books They Banned, How Canon Was Created. By now, we've seen that sacred texts are human creations carrying the fingerprints of politics, translation, and authority. In this episode, we step inside the stories themselves to see how competing voices were silenced, edited, or buried, and how what we call orthodoxy was crafted as much through omission as inclusion. Christianity offers a stark example. In the first few centuries CE, dozens of Gospels, letters, and revelations circulated. Some were written by apostles, some by followers claiming apostolic authority, some by communities with entirely different theological perspectives. The Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary, and the Shepherd of Hermas. All these texts offered alternative understandings of Jesus' teachings, yet only 4 Gospels were canonized at Nicaea. Why those 4? Not because they were pure, but because they aligned with the bishop's vision for a unified, centralized church. Others were destroyed or hidden, labeled heretical. The process of canonization was an act of social engineering. By deciding which texts were sacred, leaders controlled which ideas would survive. Messages about personal empowerment, egalitarianism, and alternative moral codes were excised, while narratives reinforcing hierarchy, obedience, and priestly authority were elevated. Once canon was fixed, it became harder for ordinary believers to access alternate interpretations. Literacy was limited, texts were chained, and languages were controlled. What people experienced as divine truth was often the result of editorial choice. Judaism as well shows similar patterns. The Torah, the prophets, and the writings were compiled over centuries from multiple sources. Scholars identify at least 4 distinct strands in the Pentateuch. The J, E, P, and D texts, each reflecting different traditions, priorities, and perspectives. Some were harmonized, others erased. Even after compilation, rabbinical authorities continued to interpret, reinterpret, and apply these laws to maintain communal cohesion, often enforcing social conformity under the banner of divine command. Islam faced a comparable process. Muhammad's original revelations were memorized and recited by followers. After his death, multiple versions of the Quran circulated. Caliph Uthman ordered a standardized codex destroying variant recitations. Authority was centralized. The faithful now had one official Quran. Words chosen, words eliminated, all decisions made to consolidate unity and reduce interpretive conflict. Human hands, not angels, shaped a text that millions treat as immutable. Across religions, the pattern is clear. Initial diversity, competing interpretations, selective preservations, and the enforcement of orthodoxy. This isn't about conspiracy. It's about a social cohesion and control. Once belief becomes a binding force, deviations are treated as threats. By curating what survives, leaders shape morality, behavior, and community identity for generations. Beyond the text, ritual reinforced authority. What was canonized became codified in prayer, liturgy, and ceremony. Actions, postures, and repeated recitations trained bodies to internalize hierarchy and obedience. People didn't just read the law, they performed it. Behavior became the text. Disobedience was not only sin, it was betrayal of the community. This is social engineering in its most intimate form, the shaping of the mind and body to align with institutional power. Hidden codes, too, continued to play a role. Mystical interpretations like Kabbalah in Judaism, allegorical readings in Christianity, or esoteric knowledge in early Islamic thought preserved insight that were intentionally obscured. Only initiates or scholars could access these layers, reinforcing hierarchy within the hierarchy. Ordinary believers received a streamlined narrative. One story, one path, one truth. Deviations were punished subtly or overtly. If you step back, the lesson is unavoidable. What we often experience as divine unity is the result of centuries of human curation. The mechanics, selective preservation, canonization, controlled literacy, ritual enforcement, all serve to focus belief, align behavior, and maintain power structures. To recognize this is not to destroy faith. It is to understand its construction, its vulnerabilities, and its potential for both good and harm. In our next episode, we will explore how fear and reward were deliberately woven into these systems, shaping compliance and devotion. But for now, reflect. Every story you accept as sacred was once one of many competing narratives. Every law you obey may have been edited, chosen, and performed to serve more than spiritual truth. Awareness is the first step towards conscious choice.